Before we begin, the views and opinions expressed by my guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of this podcast or its host. And with that being said, what's going on, everybody? It's Xavier Z. Mitchell, the host of Coldest Conversations podcast. And I have a special guest here with me this evening. I'll go ahead and bring him in and let him tell you a little bit about himself. Come on in, Brother Wade.
Hey, how you doing, man? I appreciate you for having me on. I'm also a fellow laborer in the funeral business. I've been in the business for about 15 years now. I graduated from Worsham College of Mortuary Science. Also a filmmaker, also did a little pro wrestling training, but I have a very strong passion for the funeral business. It's my calling, man. So I'm glad to be here with you.
Yes, sir. I'm glad to have you here on the podcast. So, Mr. Wade, tell me a little bit about your background and what inspired you to enter into this funeral world.
Well, so it actually started when I was in elementary school. I always used to talk about the funeral business and the embalming process. And prior to that, at a church convention, I actually drowned as a child. And I had I don't know if I left my body or not, but I remember as a child saying that I saw angels fighting in the water. And so that kind of got me a little bit curious about, the afterlife and things of that nature. But I used to talk about the funeral business a lot as a child. So I remember when I was in eighth grade, a young man by the name of Terrence Matthews. He was like, "What you want to be a funeral director or something?" And I'm like, "You know what? I think I will." And so when I got to high school, this was my senior year, I started volunteering at a funeral home, and then I just hung around and then eventually went to school for it. So, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve.
Yes, sir. You remind me so much of my younger self. I know you probably older than me. I'm 20. Um, you
Yeah,
know at an early age that you called to do this, and I think that's what makes us special.
absolutely. Absolutely, man. I'm 33 now, and man, it's been some ups and downs, to be honest, but every time I tried to get away from it, it's like something would happen to bring me right back to it. So I never get far away from it, so I stopped trying to run from it.
Kind of like Jonah trying to run from God. You can't run, you can't hide.
Absolutely. My grandfather used to love that song.
Yes, sir. So, was there a specific funeral service or was there a specific person that passed on that made you say, "This is my calling"?
I remember maybe when I was like I forgot how old I was, but there was a sister from my church. Her name was Janice Hayes, and I remember she transitioned. I was a child then, and I remember I actually had a dream that she actually touched me. And I remember, I think it was A.A. Rayner that did her service, but that really kinda stuck with me, and so, like, I never forgot that, and so, when I started working in the funeral business, I jumped right in, and everybody's like, "You're not afraid of this?" And I'm like, "No, because it's the living people that we ought to be worried about," but it's really a calling, man, and it's kind of a reminder too, like, in life that, you know what? All of us are gonna leave here one day, so to me, it's like for a person to be in a funeral business, it takes a person to be really rooted and grounded. I think it takes a person, in my own opinion, to be God fearing because if ain't nowhere in the world, if I was in my right mind, I would have really chose this profession. But I believe that God led me to do it. So that's why I do it, man.
That's right, and when I was in school, I was talking to a couple of my classmates, and while we were learning the anatomy part of the industry, I was just looking at the structure of the human body, and I told my classmates, I'm like, "If somebody doesn't believe in God, they better come they better take a tour of the funeral home and try to get into that back room, because once you see the structure of the human body, there's a God somewhere."
Absolutely. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. And every part of the human body is very intentional and everything works together. So it's like it's really an eye-opening experience because it's like I often think about that scripture that tell us like if this earthly house or this tabernacle was dissolved, right? And so I look at our bodies as like a house. And when a person go on, they just move to another home. And so to me, it's like everything in this body that we have, it works together, it serves a purpose, and Just put it like this, if our kidneys go bad or if our eyes go bad, it affects all of our bodies, so it's like, it works together, man, it's a team, and I thank God he made me a human, you know?
That's right. My next question, well, you've already told me how long you've been in the profession. So, when you started working at the funeral home in high school, what were some of your tasks and your duties that you had to do at the funeral home?
So when I first started, I used to help pass out programs, obituaries rather, answer phones, clean chapels, clean bathrooms, and I did that for like a long time actually because like right after I graduated high school, I just stuck in the funeral business and then I ended up going to college at Malcolm X. I went there and did my prereqs. But for most time I was just answering phones, helping families learning the computer system and things of that nature. But I loved it, man. It's like I met so many people, helped so many families, you know. And, it's just really been an honor, man, and a lot of the funeral directors that I work with, some of them have been around a long time doing this. Some of them been doing it, like, over 45, almost 50 years.
Yes, sir. It's always a blessing to hang around the old heads in the industry. And that's one of my favorite questions to ask. I want to know why you chose to go into this industry. So you did a great job of explaining that. So let's jump off into some funeral industry questions. How do
Absolutely.
you feel that the funeral industry can better connect with the younger generation of upcoming professionals?
I believe that a lot of funeral directors should start, taking on some of the younger teenagers and let them come in and see how the business go and start going around and educating the younger people about the field because I know coming up, I don't remember any morticians coming to the school for career day. I know some of them are doing it now, but I also think that it's like I think some funeral homes can be much more, not all, but I'm gonna say some could be a little more friendly towards bringing in the next generation because a lot of times, a lot of them are family owned or things of that nature. And then too, it's like I don't know. I think I feel like a lot of the older morticians are just kind of used to doing things the old fashioned way. I think sometimes you have to teach the next generation, but you also have to be open to the fact that the next
Correct.
generation is gonna take that baton and they're gonna do a whole lot more with it because
That's
we live
right.
in a very different world today.
Yeah, you have a lot of older funeral directors that are stuck in their ways. You have to move with time.
Absolutely.
Social media is a thing in the funeral industry now. We
Yep,
having different trends now. So you have to move with time and you have to swap out your staff sometimes because 80-year-old Mr. John, he's ready to go to the house. So you need to bring in some young blood, let them get a feel, because you never know. That young person that
absolutely.
you take on may be the very person to buy you out because it's not guaranteed that just because you have children, they're gonna wanna do the funeral business their entire life.
I'll tell you this, I have a funeral director that I know very dear to my heart that's older than me, and I always have this conversation with older funeral directors. I always tell them that for the ones that are, kinda older, that we have to understand that personalization is better than commercialization because sometimes I think, you know, it's like we've been doing it this way for years, but nowadays people want more of that personal touch, you know? I feel like funerals should always have been personal, but it's like, when you honoring somebody, it's like again, I'm a filmmaker too, so it's like you're telling this person's story. So to me, the best funeral home would serve that family and they would make everything about that particular person that they're serving because you're coming together to help the family tell their loved one story. So to me, I feel like you should go over and beyond to help their story get told.
Yes, sir. Now, what's one piece of advice that you would give to a mortuary science student, a teenager, upcoming high school senior, or just a funeral service worker? What's one piece of advice that you would give to he or she?
Well, my biggest advice to any young person coming into the field would be go volunteer at a funeral home, check it out. if you are gonna enroll in school, I would encourage anybody to learn the academic material before going because I was one that was in the field before going to school, but sometimes some people who've been in the field a long time can take it for granted. It's like sometimes academics is a little bit different from what you're gonna be doing hands-on. So I would say get your books early, start reading them books, learn from funeral directors that you're around, but also make sure you read them books before you go to school. Because if I had known that a lot early on, I probably would have got out of school a lot more faster than I did, man. Real talk.
Yes, sir. You definitely have to stay in those books, and if you can, go ahead and get them. I remember being a junior in high school, and I went ahead and ordered that $100 Amazon book. My mama asked me what I wanted for Christmas. I said, "Get this book for me." She said,
Absolutely.
"What?" I said, "Yeah, I want the book."
You did the right thing. No, you absolutely did the right thing because a lot of time I noticed that from my experience with some of the people who worked in the business, we were the ones that kinda struggled with school, and then some of the people who were new to the business, they the ones that were excelling in it, so it's like, just never like, your experience is one thing, but just, read the books, study the history, learn it because when you go to school to be a funeral director, you're really not just going to school just to be a funeral you're taking up law, you're taking up anatomy, you're taking up psychology, you're taking up sociology, chemistry, you're taking up a business management, so it's a lot of moving parts to this field, so you wanna be very well rounded.
That's right, and that was my problem. I went in school thinking that I was just a big shot because I had been around the funeral industry half of my entire life, but that's a different story. Uh,
Absolutely,
you forget all this stuff that you learn at the funeral home when you come to mortuary college. We're doing
absolutely,
everything by the books.
absolutely, and once I got a hang of that, man, and I'm one to admit because, like, one thing about me, I know that most of the people that know me know my testimony about school, that it was I had a rough time in school, I'm never ashamed of saying that, but I always share my experience with other people so that they won't have a rough time like I did, but I did a lot of reading and I did as much studying as I could, but I did a lot of praying, and I can tell you this, when it came to taking my exit exam, it was rough, and it took me about 7 months after I finished the program to even pass the arts part, and it's amazing because I was just praying and trusting God, and when He led me to go to film school, right when I went to film school, they like, "You doing all this stuff," but right when I went to film school, I ended up passing arts. After I graduated film school, I remember, I'll never forget this, God is good. I had a dream that I passed science. And so I got up that day, I said, "Lord, Imma trust you." I went out to the school, took the test, and passed science. So, that wasn't me, that was all God, man, I'm
Look
telling
at
you.
God. Look at God. Wow. That's a testimony there.
Yeah, cause I had gave up on it, man, but I would tell anybody, the funeral business is something that when you go into it, you gotta stay focused, stay prayerful, but never give up if it's something that you like, cause it's not easy, like, a lot of people might not. Cause I talk to a lot of people and they say, "I didn't even know you had to go to school for this," but it's
Right.
very intense. It's a very intense course.
That's right. So you said you have over 15 years of experience. What is your area of expertise? Embalming, restorative art, directing, grief support, or is it just a mix of all those?
For me, it's a mixture. I'm very good with talking to people. I definitely try to brush up on embalming because it's like, that's one of those things that you wanna be as great as you can be with it because representation is everything. So I always would tell anybody, I don't care how great of an embalmer you are, you can always still learn from other people. You can always get better. I wanna brush up on restorative arts too because I feel like it's something that you can learn in school, but you have to wanna master that on your own, you know?
Correct.
Cause in school, they teach you the fundamental, the basic, but you have to take that step and go further. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, there's one funeral director I work with. There was this young lady, she was born without an ear. She passed away. Her mother said, I just wish my daughter had an ear. This coworker that I know, she got a putty, she mixed some things together, and she made the baby an ear, and the mother was so happy. And so it takes a person that really cares to really go over and beyond to even do something like that.
Yes, sir. You have to have a heart, being in this industry, and you have to have a heart to take time out of your day to go into the prep room and do a restorative art project.
Absolutely. I was just over at another funeral home because right now I'm operating my own transfer service. I've been doing that for about 2 years now, and I was over at another funeral. He was just telling me it took him 11 hours to embalm a body, and I was like, "Wow, like, that's dedication," like, 'cause,
Dedication for sure.
you gotta really be passionate about what you do to spend 11 hours in the prep room
That's right.
for one case.
Yeah. So with all that being said, all this knowledge that you've gained from your fellow colleagues, what kind of legacy do you want to leave in the funeral industry?
I just wanna leave a legacy saying that, you know what? Wade Simmons loved what he did, he loved God, he loved people, and he gave us the best service he can give. And to me, that means the world because to me in the funeral business, it is a business, but I always say that it's also a service, it's also it's a business, but it can be also a ministry to those of us that are believers. Because a lot of times in our communities, sometimes we have to give a little more than we take at times because everybody may not always have funds for things and stuff of that nature. So sometimes we may have to give a little more than we take, but
That,
it's just about doing the best you can to help other people.
that's right. Now, what's one thing that you took from mortuary school that you still apply to your daily life as a licensed funeral professional?
So for me, one of the best things that I learned is to be an educator more than a salesman.
Hmm.
And the reason why I say that is because again, it's a business, but I developed like a strong passion for educating people about the funeral business, kind of like what you do. And I really believe that it's so important to educate our brothers and sisters about death, even about life, but about death, because a lot of times, unfortunately, when people lose a loved one, sometimes it's a lot of people that don't even know what to do, don't even really know where to go, or don't even know what options they have. And so I'm just all about letting people know what options they have, letting people know the history behind certain things, and just letting them know that you can celebrate your loved one's life in the way that you would like to, because it's about you honoring your loved one.
That's right. And that's one thing that I wanted to do when I first came on social media. I was all about making it about myself. Once I saw I had an actual platform, I said, I'm going to take this. I'm not going to more so focus on the hearses, the limousines, the caskets. I want to teach the general public about everything that they don't know, the things that people
Absolutely.
aren't doing. And I'm
Absolutely.
glad to see more funeral professionals educating the public.
Absolutely. That's very important because I remember one time this young lady, she came to the funeral home, and this was while she was waiting on the funeral director to come take her in the office. I gave her the price list, and then I walked her to the back, and then as she was walking to the front, she was kinda like, I need to kinda like make a decision or whatever. And I just started just talking to her about the business and things of that nature. She was just like, I never heard none of this stuff before. But like I told her, I said, you always have to know what your options are so you can do what's best for you. Because that's the most important thing is that families make decisions that are best for them. That's what we're there for. We're there to assist them with the needs that they wanna have to celebrate their loved one's life. So we're pretty much event planners. We're pretty much what? Motivational speakers, encouragement,
Right,
counselors. We some everything.
right. And my preceptor, he reminds me of that every time I'm with him. So my next question is, you said we're motivators. How do you support a family that's divided by drama? are you having conflict during the funeral arrangement?
Oh, well, yeah, I've had a lot of fair share moments like that. But one thing, I try to remind families of is, first of all, you're here to celebrate your loved one's life. You are here to honor them. And my whole thing is like, look, you know, I understand, some people may have issues and things, but look, now is not the time for that. And so a lot of times if you talk to people kind of with kindness and kind of let them have their moments and kind of talk to them as a whole. A lot of times, most people calm down because I mean, especially for me being on the removal transfer side now, you see a lot, especially when you're going into people's houses and you see things and family not getting along at times, but you're there to comfort that family, so you do the best that you can to make peace. Peace is a beautiful thing.
Yes, sir. My next question, what is the best way to comfort a family that doesn't know how to start planning a funeral and grieving?
I would say the first thing would be think about your loved one. Think about what was something in their life that they love, and you make a list, and then you go from there and start saying, "Well, what type of service would you like to have?" And then they like, "Well, how would you like to honor your loved one?" Because just recently, back in January, my grandfather actually made his transition, and I know that he loved gospel quartet music. I mean, Lee Williams, the Captain Spirituals, and all those things. He loved that, and so what we did for his homegoing celebration, we didn't sing we didn't sing I Should Wear a Crown and nothing like that. We had them sing stuff like On My Way Home, Glad I Got Jesus Down in My Heart. It was I Come From Mississippi, Poor Boy, and to me it's always great to just honor people how they live and to just celebrate them in a because like I put it like this, because not all funerals have to be the same. Like I feel like a funeral celebration is almost kind of like it's like a party in a sense. Yes, there's mourning and
Correct.
things of that nature, but it's like a party. So when you go to somebody's birthday celebration, you celebrate their birthday in a way that honors them. And so I feel like a funeral should be the same way.
Yes, sir. It's a celebration of life. And, I'm glad we're talking about this because it brings me to my next question. How do you handle families that might have different religious beliefs than you? Now,
Oh.
I'm quite sure you and I are both Christians. We have a strong faith within God. How do you deal with families who aren't so religious as us?
So what I would do in cases like that, I would ask them, what you believe, how would you want to celebrate your loved one's life? And to me, I always kind of make it like, okay, it's not so much about us as professionals. We have to give them what they ask for. And so to me, if it's something that I don't know much about, I would reach out to an expert and talk because I remember some years ago, this was very interesting. We had a family that had 2 different type of religious services for the same person in one day. So, the first part of the service was Jehovah Witness, the second part of the service was Buddhist. I had never seen that done for the same person, but to make peace with the family, they agreed that that's the way they do it. So to me, I always just try to help people celebrate how they believe. I think that that's the more honorable thing to do because again, it's about them, it's about their loved ones. So I just give them what they ask for.
And that's right. And I can remember when I was taking funeral service psychology, uh, my professor told us that the best thing you can do to help a family in that difficult time is don't try to persuade them to do anything else. Never tell them that that's too much. The exact way that they plan that service, you do it that way because
Absolutely.
you never know just that the one small thing that you let them do that would give them some closure.
Absolutely. And that's that is what it's about. It's about servicing the family because it's to help them to grieve and celebrate their loved one. So to me, I like the way a friend of mine put it. He says the only star in the room is the one laying in the casket. And so it's always about them. So whatever that family wants to do to honor their loved one, and who am I to get in their way, you know?
Yes, sir. That's an excellent point. All right. So we're gonna dive a little deeper into the funeral industry. When you hear a good funeral, when somebody say how the funeral was good, what is your definition of a good funeral from a professional standpoint?
So from a professional standpoint, it would be that everybody was down, everybody put it like this, everything was in place on time, everything went smoothly, the family got along very well, and the family was satisfied because in the funeral business, you would love for the family to come up to you and say, "We were very satisfied and thank you." Because the one thing as a professional you don't wanna hear is, "We weren't happy. This was terrible. We'll deal with this." Like, you never wanna hear that. So to me, if the family is pleased, then I'm happy.
That's right. And in the funeral business, you only get one shot. You
Absolutely.
just get one shot. You got
Absolutely.
one shot to make sure grandmama looks like grandmama.
Absolutely. Because the worst thing you can ever do is have a family be like, "You know what? We are not happy. This look a mess and that." And so to me, we have to be always on our P's and Q's and go over and beyond to make sure that everything is correct, everything is right. And so it's always good to just check in with the family, make sure everything is good, and just, give the best service that you can give. And again, not make it about ourselves, but make it about the family and their loved one, because that's the most important thing. Because again, you have no funeral home without any people coming to you. You have no business without people coming to you. So it's always important to honor those that you are serving.
That's right. And just serve to the best of your ability and let the works you do speak for you.
Absolutely.
My next question. What part of the funeral service took you by surprise when you got into the field?
The one part about it that really took me by surprise was actually the embalming process, because it was a lot of things you heard. Like, I'm pretty sure you probably heard it, like, they used to say, "Oh, they put pennies in the eyes and all this stuff."
Now, I
They
never heard that.
Yeah,
I heard some crazy stuff, but
they used
never
to say
about the pennies in the
yeah,
eye.
they used to say that, but then I found out when I started working, no, we use eye caps. But yeah, that took me by surprise. Cause you used to hear, like, as a child, I heard all kind of things, but when I started working in it, it wasn't, it was nothing like people used to say it was, you know?
Yeah, people just didn't know what they were talking about, and then we actually got into the funeral home, and we actually went to mortuary school, and we found out that all those myths on the street, you can forget about that because they don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
And then another thing was like, people used to, say, "Oh, I could never spend a night in the funeral home," but for about 5 years, I actually worked all day Saturday and then Saturday night, because one of the gentlemen, he was working quite a bit, and so he needed one day off, and I'm like, "Well, until y'all hire somebody, I'll work overnight, until y'all get somebody," but they never got nobody. So it turned into me staying there overnight for 5 years, but I had the most peace just sitting in there, just listening to music and, talking to different friends on the phone and having prayer, eating my food, so didn't bother me at all. I had no problem.
Yes, sir, doc. My next question, what's a common misconception about the funeral industry that you wish people would stop spreading and you wish that the people they spread it to would stop believing?
The funeral homes are greedy, and they steal caskets and reuse them and all that stuff. It's like, no, it's like, you know, I ain't a lot of things that people say I ain't never seen that done in my life, you know? But a lot of people would think like, them morticians, they just greedy making all the money. It's not. You know, you'll be surprised. It's a lot of people do this because they love it, because I know plenty of funeral directors who do this as a side job, or they do it just out of passion, because a lot of times every funeral business is different. And sometimes there are some funeral home owners who actually work other jobs as well. They're not trying to nickel and dime people to make money. It's like, no, it's not. I don't see that side of it, you know?
That's right. And, I don't like to say this, but I have to say it. A lot of times people mix the funeral home up with the church. The church may have a benevolent fund, but the funeral home doesn't.
Absolutely. You're right, absolutely. And again, like, put it to be honest, it is a business, but at the same time, it's also a ministry to some people. And to me, like I said, I know because the funeral home that I worked with for a long time, I can tell you honestly that that gentleman, he gave to a lot of families and helped a lot of families. And when people didn't even have anything, a lot of times, they brought what they could and he worked with it. And so I've seen more of that than anything, you know? I've
Yes,
I've
sir.
seen Yep, I've seen more of that than anything. That's why I always say in the funeral business, I've seen more people give more than they actually take a lot of times.
Yes, sir. So, what skill do you think separates a great funeral professional from the average funeral professional?
I think a great funeral director is somebody who is always constantly learning and always constantly wanting to do better. And Imma just go ahead and say it, I'm not afraid to say it, but I think that every funeral home should even do surveys with families to find out, what could we have done better? Or I think it's important to always get feedback. We may not always agree or like it, but I think if anybody wanna get better with something, you have to talk to the people that you're serving, because if you don't ask, you never know. And I rather a person be honest to me to my face than to, like, go on Yelp and post, you know what I'm saying, you bad comments and things of that nature, because again, things happen, but to me, I think that a great funeral director would always prioritize the people that he's serving and make sure that he or she is giving, again, the best service that they can provide, and just trying to go over and beyond, because that's important. Like, that's your representation, and I always think you should wanna give people the best. Like, it shouldn't be about, "Well, this person only paid this and they only get that." No matter how much a family pays, everybody should still walk away satisfied.
That's right. And let's just piggyback off of that common misconception with the funeral industry. A lot of people think that the funeral home tries to persuade people to, get an Aretha Franklin funeral. And that's not the case. The funeral home has affordable options, but when a
Absolutely.
family tries to go above that, that's where the issue comes in.
And I think that again, but that comes with, that's why those of us who are in the funeral business, it's so important to educate people so that they'll understand why certain things are the way they are. And I think that if people do that, then it would actually help people have a better foundation of what to expect. Because when people don't know what to expect, then they just would assume, well, I could just do this, and it's like, no, it's a certain reason why things are the way that they are. So I think that that's where it comes to educating people and just helping them to understand, you know, maybe you want to work with this, or what do you want? And then once they tell you what they want, now you can kind of work the price ranges out with them, because again, a lot of people don't understand that we do have to follow the Federal Trade Commission. I mean, that's what we give out the general price list for, to help families to have a breakdown of what they're paying for. That's
Okay.
so
So you
important.
Yes, sir. You've been around the funeral business a long time. What qualities make a funeral home stand out in a saturated market?
To me, the ones that go over and beyond, and the ones that value personalization over commercialization, because personalization is like, okay, we are servants and Sister Johnson, let's just say Sister Johnson, she make it to be 101. Now, we don't just have Sister Johnson out like, the funeral home down the street. We're gonna make sure that we personalize this service to the best of our ability, that when people come, it's all about her. Maybe you got a picture of her in the church. Maybe after, you have served the family, you give them something that is not just some simple thing, but just show them that you appreciate them. And to me, it's just all about personalizing everything nowadays, because to me, those are the funeral homes that I think that are really growing, and they are finding favor with the people because they're going over and beyond, and they're not just having these just old fashioned services without just, it's like, no, it's not, because back in the day we didn't, because see, back in the day we didn't really see a lot of caskets that had the deceased on it, or head panels and things of that, or tributes, memorial tributes and things of that nature. But now I think those funeral homes that are just, encouraging the family to, no, feel free to celebrate your loved one's life in the way you would, and they go over and beyond to just make it about the deceased. Like, if you know that this person loved Mickey Mouse, bring some Mickey Mouse teddy bears. You know what I'm saying? If you know that this person was a into jazz music, play jazz music. It doesn't have to always just be the old traditional stuff.
Yes, sir. So my next question, since we're talking about, modern day funeral service, do you think people still value embalming or is that something that's fading?
I personally think people still value embalming, because even with the cremation rate being high as it is, a lot of people are still having funeral services and just having the cremation later. Yes, we are seeing cremation kind of rise a little bit, but I still think that there's a fair amount of people who are still wanting to have a full funeral service.
Yes, sir. Now I don't know if you've been looking into this, but it's expected that cremation will dominate embalming. Do you
Yes,
think that that's something that will happen?
I believe so. I think that it's kinda already happening, but I think that there are a lot of people who are still having funeral services, but they're still getting cremated after. But I understand what you're saying too, that there's a lot of direct cremations going on as well. So, I think that it could be possible, but I also think that there are gonna be a lot of more natural green burials too. I think that more people are, starting to get into that, because now, because a lot of people didn't know that they had those options, but I think that now with social media and people being able to look stuff up on their own, I think people are kind of finding other alternatives to rather just having the traditional service. So yeah, you're correct about that.
Yes, sir. So since we're on the topic of green burials, what's your stance on green burials and all those eco-friendly options?
I think it's a pretty cool thing actually, because I feel like for some people who really prefer that method, I think that it's something different, it's something untraditional, but I think that it's something that I think that's gonna end up being a growing trend, because me personally, I would say for myself, I probably would prefer to have a green burial, and I actually been even thinking about looking at the burial at sea, because I've been in the process of getting licensed in California, because I got a license in Illinois, but I'm already an arranger in California, but I'm working on becoming a fully licensed director there as well. And I know in California they also do like the burial at sea. So I've been thinking about looking into maybe finding out more about that business too. Cause like I said, I wanna be able to do everything. You know? I wanna be able to offer people all the options that I can offer them.
Yes, sir. A young, ambitious funeral director. You
Gotta
know,
be, cause look, it's about giving the people what they desire. That's the whole point, because being a funeral director is a servant. It's a servant role. I know sometimes we look nice in the suit and the tie, but we still servants, and so we have
preach, preach.
we got to provide the families with what they want. Long as it's legal, we provide them with what they want.
That's right. My next question for you: do you think the funeral business is that more nowadays? Is it more business driven or is it still ministry based?
I think I think it's a little bit of both. I think that Imma be honest, I think it's a lot of people now jumping into it because they think, "Oh, man, this is a good way to get money and this, and that," but I think Imma be honest, and you know just what I know, there's a lot of people that go to school to be a mortician, but half of the people that go to school for this field end up walking away from it. Because a lot
That's
of
correct.
times when people get into it and see how it really is, they might be like, "Oh, man, it's not as much money as I thought," or, "It's not this or that." So to me, it's still to me more about being a servant and and to some people, like I said, to some people we do consider it a ministry because, like I said, I've not tooting my own horn or anything, but I've done a removal that I didn't charge for. You know, I've done things that I didn't always charge for. It happens sometimes, but you know, if the Lord puts it on your heart to just be a blessing to somebody, you know, you just do it. It's just the way it goes sometimes. So to me, in this business, sometimes we have to give more than we take at times. And so that's why I tell any funeral director, it's okay to, you know, be a funeral director and maybe have another job if you have to or whatever. But you know, I never want to take advantage of families. I always just want to serve and help people and do what I love and just, you know, treat people right. That's the most important thing.
Okay, now my next question to you. Do you think some people get into funeral service for the wrong reason?
I do. I think that sometimes people get into it, you know, and again, they looking at, "Oh, man, I can make this and make that," but a lot of times, it's not always like that because sometimes you have to understand that especially if you're an independent contractor like I am, every funeral home is different. Everybody's clientele is different. So some places you might make a little more over here. Some places you might make a little less over here. Some places you might have to do a few favors for some people at times. It just everything is situational. But to me, I would tell anybody that if you get into this field, don't just look at the money, look at the service, look at being the best funeral director you can be. Because one thing I would tell anybody, this is not the type of profession that you want to do with a bad attitude. If a person got a bad attitude, stay home that day because you're dealing with people at the worst time of their life. So for a person that has a bad attitude, or that this may not be the career for them.
Yes, sir. Now let me ask you this. This is more on the business aspect. Do you think that the funeral home should offer non-traditional services like event planning, catering? Do you think they should add that into their prices?
I think some do. I think that depending on what state you in, I think that it's important to kind of look at like the legalities of it because I know some states are a lot more stricter than others about certain things. But personally, I think it's up to the individual. Me personally, I think that I'm okay with the family kind of, you know, picking whatever caterer they want to go to or things of that nature. But again, I mean, for those individuals that are entrepreneurs and they're thinking forward, I mean, hey, if it works for them, hey, I support them, you know?
Yes, sir. That's man, we having a good dialogue.
Yeah, man.
Okay. My next question is this. Do you believe that funeral homes should do more in the aftercare division after the funeral is gone, rather than just emailing?
Yes, that's a great question. Yes, because you don't want a person to feel like, well, we got your money. We did this. I think it's so important to let those you serve know that you care. I think, you know, it's important to keep record of the families you serve every now and then, check with them. I do know some funeral directors personally that call the family, just say, "Hey, we just thinking about you." I think it's very important because one thing that we have to understand about death is until Jesus come and reign and all those things, we know that death is going to be here. And so we gotta be honest about this, that, you know, it can happen to anybody at any time, and so you have to understand that if you service one family, they may eventually come back, you know, not anticipating it or not rushing or hurrying anything, but it's just to be honest, you want the people to know that you care about it. Even if they don't come back, you wanna show people that you care. You wanna have aftercare, resources, even if you have to have some grief counselors, and because I've noticed that there are some funeral homes that have grief counselors. They have people that have relationships with the community, and I think that's so important. 'Cause you don't wanna just get people money and just be like, "Okay, we're finished." Like, no, like, you know, it's more to it, you because again, the person that we are taking care of, they're going on, but the family who we are servicing, they are the ones that have to deal with that transition, and so I think it's important to let them know that, "Hey, if you need anything, we're here for you," and it's always important to continue to just make sure that the people are alright.
Yes, sir. Now, my next set of questions is going to be a little bit about the fleet. I know you're in Illinois. Um, I was at a funeral the other day, and it was kind of funny. It was an older lady. She came up to me. I was in the flower van. She said, "Oh, you in the lead car." I said, "This ain't the lead car." She said, "Well, you was in front of the hearse. You in the lead car." So, what's your definition of a lead car?
Yeah, so the lead card would be it'd just be more so I would just say like a nice little Cadillac, maybe with a little light at the top, flashing, and it leads the hearse on out, but some people got different lead cars, like you just said, everybody have a different definition, but any car that's leading the procession in front of the hearse, to me, that's a lead car. I mainly see people do it with Cadillacs, though.
Yes, sir. My next question is about social media in the funeral industry. We know social media has now entered into the funeral industry. Do you think it has a place? And if so, how can we be more respectful with using social media? Because I see a lot of our colleagues are using social media. Some use it good, some use it bad. What are on limits and off limits for that?
I think for me, what is on limits, you can show the chapel, you can show the funeral home, you can show the chemicals, the fluid, things of that nature. You can even, show some history on the business, but to me, what is off limit is showing the deceased. I'm not a very big fan of that. I know sometimes families do it. That's to their discretion because that's their loved one. They have their right if they want to. But to me, as long as nobody is like showing the deceased, I think that they can pretty much show everything else, show the chapels and show the history of it. I think letting the community know that you're there, I think that's important. But I still think even with social media though, like even though we live in this age, I still think I don't know, I think it's something about still just kinda being more personal with people because a lot of time there's so much stuff on social media nowadays, so many, people doing their thing. I think you need a combination of both. I think that social media is good for what it's good for, but I also still think that it's good to get out in the community and educate them about death and, let them come to us sometimes. I understand we can't let everybody in the prep room area, but let them come to the facilities and just educate them and just share with them how things go. I think to me that old fashioned way still works.
Yes, sir. You have to keep people at your prep room because you can't trust everybody. You know,
Sure can.
certain people have hidden agendas, so you have to be very careful with that. And I wish that more people would stop trying to get on the camera and just pose by a hearse and a limousine, just trying to be seen. If you're gonna be a content creator about the funeral industry, don't do it as a flex. Use that as an opportunity to promote your brand and to educate rather than entertain.
Absolutely, you know what? And you absolutely so right about that because as long as I've been in the funeral business, I never really post. A lot of people that have interviewed me, I talk to them about the business, things of that nature, but I rarely post pictures from the because to me, again, if you're building your brand is one thing, but to me, I just love what I do and it's sacred to me. I do it because I love it, and I wouldn't probably really want to be doing, besides filmmaking and wrestling, I don't think I would really want to be doing anything else besides this because I was doing this when I wasn't getting paid for it. So I know that I have to have a passion for it.
Yes, sir. That's good. It's definitely a calling, and you definitely have to have a passion for it. Now, what's your philosophy when it comes to viewing versus closed casket?
So to me, I think for me, I think that people should view because it's important to have that closure, but I do respect closed caskets because I know sometimes some people want the casket closed, not because nothing was wrong. Some people just prefer that, but I see nothing wrong with a view because I feel like a lot of times when most people see someone pass away, even with the cremation rate being as high, most people when they hear somebody passed away, they're gonna come to the service looking for the body. That most people do. They like, "Oh, the body wasn't there." And some people be, kinda feeling a little disappointed because I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people tell me, "Man, I went to the service and, it was a closed casket," though, but like I say, hey, the family have a right to do what they want. It's their loved one, if that's their wishes, but I don't know, I think sometimes seeing the person is closure.
That's right. Having a even if it's a private one-on-one viewing, that's closure for a family. And I don't
Absolutely.
like when the general public just comes to the funeral to be nosy, but that's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
Um, my next question, we're gonna dive deeper into the education side. Do you believe that students should have to complete more hands-on training before leaving school?
I actually think so. I think it would be nice, and that's man, I nobody ever asked me this, but that's a great question because I would say yes because I think that with the internship, some states let you do your internship before you go to school. In Illinois, we have to do it after school, and you have to do so many cases. But some states, you pass your exam, you already licensed. So to me, I think that it would help if students have more hands-on experience in school because I think it would better prepare them because again, sometimes some people struggle to find internships and so that's another story within itself. So I think personally, I think everything should be done and over with in school. And if you do have to do an apprenticeship, I think it should be maybe 3 months. That should be it.
That's right, because it's very, very, very hard to get your foot in the door. Because, like I
Man,
said, those old mindsets of a lot of
it is.
professionals.
Man, I've met so many funeral because I used to wonder when I was younger, like, when I first came into the field, when I would meet some funeral directors that were licensed who wasn't practicing no more, and even some people like, I got friends who passed they test way before I did, and they like, "Wait, you can't pay me to do this. I'm not doing it anymore. I don't wanna be bothered with it." They went through some things with their internships, and they just out of it, and I respect it and understand it, but it's like, I think that if we get all that over with in school and then come out maybe 3 months later, you should be able to kinda move on because it's
Correct.
it's it's just I don't know, I think that's what school is for, to prepare you for that.
Correct. And, with that being said, with all the old mindsets, do you feel that there's jealousy and competition in the industry towards students that are coming out of school?
Yes. I think that a lot of times, because I know a lot of people in the field, and to be honest with you, that's kind of why, like, I've always been kinda more generous and nice to up and coming people because to me, it's a business and everybody has a right to pursue their dreams. Like, we want more funeral. I can tell you right now, since I've been involved with California, I've had several funeral homes actually reach out to me to try to get me down there right now to start working for them because they're begging for funeral directors. So to be honest with you, from what I see, a lot of people, especially during COVID, man, I'm telling you, a lot of funeral homes did not have a lot of help that they needed. Matter of fact, in Illinois, they were letting people because I didn't even have my intern license yet during COVID, but they were allowing interns to do a little more during COVID because they didn't have enough help up here. And so I personally think that it's very important to be kind to the next generation because right now there is a shortage of funeral directors, and and to be honest with you, that's a touchy subject for a lot of people, but
Correct.
I understand the reason why it is. It can be a lot from the test to the schooling to funeral homes to people being jealous of one another. But honestly, yes, there is some jealousy. And my whole thing is like, look, ain't nobody got no reason to be jealous of nobody because honestly, families are gonna go where they wanna go. They gonna use who they wanna use, so we ain't got to be mad at nobody. We can support people. We ain't got to talk bad about one another because at the end of the day, all of us are after a common goal, and that's to service the family. So to me, I don't even tell my family where to go. Like, and I've been in this business for about 50, and a lot of my family tell you, Wade don't be campaigning even for Wade. Like, no, like I want people to go where they're comfortable with. I support other funeral directors. If I can help them, I gladly will. New up and coming people in the field. I'm always look. A matter of fact, they used to have a joke at the funeral home. They say I used to hire more people than the people that own the place because I was just that passionate about
Yes,
bringing
sir.
people into the business and just seeing more people up and coming. Because again, you
Yes,
you want
sir.
to have enough people to meet the demand.
That you're so correct about that. Um, so my next question is, you said you've been around the industry quite a while. What's a time in your career where you learned a tough lesson?
The the toughest lesson would be, to be honest with you, is like for me, you have to be able to separate sometimes your feelings because again, you're servicing people at a rough time. Like I always share this story. This was before I stopped working at the place I was at full time, but I remember this one family. And I don't know why this happened, but the one guy, they were from another country. And he was kind of he was a little kind of to me he was kind of a little pushy, I'm gonna be honest. And I remember I had like a wrestling show the next day or something I had to do, but I wasn't supposed to be there. And he was really pushy, and so his I'm trying to see like his tribute, his DVD wasn't working. And so the slideshow wasn't working, so nobody could get it going. So I went in the chapel and I helped them to get it going. And so he's like, man, you gonna be here tomorrow? I said, no, sir, I would not. I said, I'll make sure that it's working for you, but I just won't. And so, and like I said, and I don't know, it's like, I don't know, just his demeanor was it was kind of a little pushy. But when I just asked him a question, I said, well, what's your relationship to the deceased? And he said, man, that's my wife. He was a young guy. And he was like, I went to work. They lived in New York. He said, I went to work and I came home and my wife was laying on the floor. The baby was laying right by her. And when he said that to me, like it changed my whole like attitude. Like because I was kind of getting a little frustrated to be honest, only because he was kind of pushy. And when he said that to me, I ended up counseling what I was doing and I actually came to the service to make sure everything went well. And so, that just taught me to be patient with people and to be understanding. And I mean, I know that that's kind of common sense in the field, but sometimes we have to be reminded of that, to not take it personal when people lash out or, not take it personal because they're grieving.
That's right. And sometimes when you're working funerals, families may get mad at you or push your arm out the way because you're trying to get them under control. But you just have to remind yourself that this is all emotion.
Yeah, man. But you know what? I know you had this experience. All of us in the bit have. When you are on the service and you're passing out the programs and somebody come in and well, they see you with the programs and you say, "We're gonna wait till the next of kin." Well, I am fam. Well, we talking about the one that made the arrangements, but it get ugly sometimes, don't it?
Oh yeah, they about those programs. Oh my God. But you know what I do? And they say, I am family. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, when the person that paid for the funeral gets here, we'll let you go out here and tell them that you're family. And we'll
Ab
see if you're telling the truth. I had a woman
Absolutely.
tell me, I am family. I said, "Okay." When the
Yeah,
funeral started, I didn't see her nowhere near those first 3 pews in that church.
mm, yeah, man, it gets I'm telling you, this is a very interesting bit because I have so many memories of stories and man, in this business,
Feel free to share.
like, I remember this was, like, maybe 2 years ago. There was a service we did where there was a young man, I don't recall what happened to him, but he had, like, 2 or 3 different baby mamas, and the other baby mama came, and then we had to and I'm telling you, like, I was working me and one of my other workers, I was in there working at night, and I was getting ready to lock the place up because after the service, they got to get ready to fight and carrying on, and I remember his auntie just screaming like, "Y'all gotta realize, get you another man, he gone." And I couldn't believe the auntie, she just like, "He gone, what is y'all fighting for?" But I called the owner funeral home, I said, "I tell you what, this family fighting. I'm getting ready to get out of here. I done locked your place up. I'm headed home." But you see a lot of stuff, man, a lot of
Yes,
man,
sir.
it's unbelievable things. I mean, we've seen even people done started this we had to break a lot of services up, end a lot of I remember one time, there was just one service. My coworker, by the time he left the church to go get some gas, by the time he got back to the church, the flowers was all over the floor, everything was tore up. They had to end the service. Yeah, I don't even think he was gone 20 minutes. And so, man, cause this I think this situation was they had, like, a different set of obituaries. I'm pretty sure you've been through that too. This family has
Yes,
a di
sir.
yeah, man, it's something. You see a lot of
Man,
stuff.
I mean, you got an obituary that the people that paid for the funeral has, and then next you see that obituary is color obituary, and then black and white, and that's I have never seen anything like that. Then you're getting yelled at. I didn't know that they were gonna bring 150 different programs from y'all.
Yeah, man, and I done seen so much stuff in all my years. I remember this one service, I'll never forget this. This was for a baby, and I believe the mother's boyfriend killed the baby, and the father showed up to the service, and they got into it, and so we had to call the police department, and the police came and swerved the funeral home, and so the rule was once you walk out that door, you can't come back in. And then I'm just telling you, man, I done seen from even a family, I seen a family fighting over some chicken at the repast in the cold with their shirt off. I said, "Lord have mercy." That must have been some good chicken, man.
Yes, sir, man. Like I said, you never know what to expect in this industry.
Yeah, man,
It's
you
it's
never
so much that goes on. So, is there anything that you didn't get a chance to talk about that you wish that I would have asked you? Or
I honestly think it's been a great conversation. I think we covered a lot of stuff, and I
yes,
just want to
sir.
say, my brother, I'm very proud of you,
Thank you.
and I'm glad to see what you're doing. The code is mortician.
Thank
I like it because it's funny because when I was coming up with my wrestling name, I was gonna be the $1,000,000 mortician, but I decided the Undertaker did that gimmick so well, so I let him
yes,
keep
sir.
that.
And when you're coming up with a nickname, it's not for the world to understand. What a lot of people don't know about that name was that was a high school nickname.
I like it. I love
Every
it.
time I would touch somebody, they said, "Your hands cold." I said, "Well, I'm going to school to be a mortician. I'm gonna be the coldest mortician." Everybody stuck up. "What's up, coldest mortician?" So
I I
I
like that.
trademarked it.
I love it. And man, look, just look, sometimes some people get mad at you because they didn't think of it first, but I commend you, brother. You're doing an awesome and a phenomenal job. Keep up the good work. And I'd say they used to call me in high school the funeral director. My
Yes,
teacher is
sir.
the funeral director.
So they spoke your career into your life.
Absolutely.
Yes,
And
sir.
I wouldn't trade it for the world, man. It's always just an honor and a privilege to do what we love doing. And like I said, every time I would try to get out the business, man. something would happen to remind me, but I'm just a very strong advocate for people celebrating their loved one's life in the way that they like. And I wanna ask you a question. Have you been noticing something a little different that been going on at some funerals now where I've noticed that instead of people doing the remarks during the service now, I've seen people start doing remarks during the wake period now. Have you ever seen that? That was pretty cool.
Now that's something that a lot of people may need to start doing.
Yeah, because I thought it was pretty cool because it instead of them starting because the wake was, like, from the service started at, like, 11, but I think they brought it to the church about 9, and then from not like from at right at, like, 10:30, I mean, right at 10, they gave everybody about an hour to say remarks during the wake period, and then once the service started, they stuck strictly to the program. It's a nice service. They kept the casket open the whole service. She had a beautiful home, but I think me personally, I kinda like the way they did it, to be honest with you.
And that way everybody gets the chance to say something. So ain't nobody gets to the repass. But I didn't get a chance to say nothing. You didn't let me say nothing. Well, you had a chance to say it before the funeral got started.
Absolutely.
That's good. Brother Wade, I've had a great dialogue with you. I'm glad I was able to connect with you. You have a great conversation. I'll definitely be getting with you on some future episodes of this podcast.
Man, it's an
Because I
honor and
can't do it myself, and I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
no, no, you go ahead, my brother.
Like I said, I can't do all these episodes myself, so I'm all for networking with my fellow colleagues. So I'll be getting with you for some future episodes.
Oh man, Lord willing, man, that sounds great. And like I said, I'm proud of you, my brother. The coldest mortician, and you keep putting God first, and He'll take care of the rest, man. So you're doing an awesome job, man. Don't let nobody discourage you. So thanks for having me, and God willing, we
Thank
gonna
you for
definitely stay
coming.
connected. Anytime,
Yes,
man.
sir.
Anytime. You reach out to me anytime. I'm here for you, brother.
Yes, sir. Take it easy.
Sounds great.
All right.